Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and infidelity, and basically talking about elements and proponents in astrology in one's chart, where where there can be indicators for a propensity for possible cheating, promiscuous behavior, infidelity, unfaithfulness to someone you're in an intimate connection with, a sexual relationship with. So anyway, uh, the first thing I want to talk about, basically, as far as just as far as the fundamentals go, as far as the signs go. I mean, fixed signs would tend to be more faithful on average, I would believe, because they are fixed, they're set in their ways, they're often very loyal, steadfast, very persistent, unwavering. Taurus could, I think, may unequivocally be the most loyal of the zodiac signs. You have a Scorpio, who, of course, can have very highly charged sexual nature. Scorpio can be show near unbridled loyalty to a partner, but I think what happens with Scorpio, if they're betrayed, they could just go, in lack of better words, haywire, or being sexually. That is a sign, because they could be very vengeful and vindictive, and then it may go again, may get their partner back by having their own extracurricular sexual or marital activities or what have you. And maybe with more than one person, because the Scorpio doesn't do anything light in terms of vengeance. Now, when you look at, as far as like the zodiac signs that I think really would incline toward being the most unfaithful on average, and there's no stereotyping here by any means. It's just on average, I would say the mutable signs, because of the changeable nature. Gemini could very well be the most unfaithful on average, given the restlessness and that need for that variety with the sign. I mean, Gemini can get very bored very easily at a monotonous situation, and they would be, I would say, them, and maybe Sagittarius could be the two that are most likely inclined to cheat and lean toward infidelity. Sagittarius has a very adventurous nature and very flighty. They're the sign that may often go just to another country to explore new ventures, so to speak, as far as being with another person. But the thing about it is, in looking at Pisces, a lot of what they do is in their mind. A lot is more about fantasizing, but Pisces is just they are ones that, I mean, given the mutable energy and the fact you got, they're symbolized, of course, by this fish swimming in opposite directions. They're the type that could vacillate and kind of go back and forth on something, and going back to one partner then to another, because they're known for their confusion, and if somebody isn't fulfilling their fantasies or what have you sexually, they may go quickly to someone else that may actually fulfill them. Now, the thing about, and Pisces is known for their deceptive and duplicitous nature, often anyway, in a very negative manifestation. The thing about as far as just elements, like in general in the chart and aspects or what have you, placements. Well, some things to look at, like if you have, some placements I would think like would be Neptune. Looking at in a love sexual relationship house could incline toward deception, duplicity in matters of the heart. Neptune in the fifth, is one example, or because the fifth is is love, romance, and could be our superficial connections, the casual sex. Seventh house, of course, is marital, is the marriage house. And think about it, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person that has those placements are going to necessarily cheat, but they could be cheated on. Neptune in the seventh can be somebody that is beguiled often in their relationships and experiences deceptive and duplicitous behavior from marriage partners. They may be the ones that are beguiled and deceived and cheated on because they might not be seeing all the details and deciphering really their marriage, really deciphering all the characteristics and the qualities of that marriage partner or significant other, what have you. Neptune in the 8th could be similar because the 8th house is connected with our sexual, intimate, deep connections, the ones that are non-superficial, basically. And I mean, if somebody's got Neptune in the 8th, it can go either way. It could go where the person might be constantly, being deceived by a sexual partner, an intimate relationship, or they may be doing that on their themselves. Some other placements, like if you have, like, as far as house placements, I would say like Venus or Mars in the 12th could be an indicator, because the thing about it is Venus. Venus in the 12th house is associated with the zodiac sign Pisces. It corresponds with Pisces. It's the house connected with deception and the clandestine affairs. And clandestine affairs are often obviously occurring when you're currently with somebody else. I mean, if you have, like, say, if somebody may have, like, if they have Venus or Mars in the 12th house, I think that would be some indicator of infidelity. Venus, I mean, you're talking about the more, sensual side of sex, the more feminine side, and the Mars, of course, is the more aggressive one. Now, the Black Moon Lilith could be another example. Having the Black Moon Lilith in one's 12th house could be an indicator of this, and this could be something where, I mean, of course, the Black Moon Lilith is like Mars, but it's more erotic in as far as the sexual energy may go. And the thing about it is, and of course, like, if you have like the Black Moon Lilith in, say, like, if it's in Scorpio and you have it in your 12th house, that could be somebody that's really trying to be very secretive about their clandestine affairs. It doesn't mean everybody that has placements like that will do the things I was describing, but there could be a greater proclivity toward it. And I would say, of course, too, if you have if though that energy is strongly afflicted by other planets, then it may even increase that propensity for it. If you have like Mars and Mars, let's say as examples with the sign, say Mars and Gemini in the 12th house of clandestine affairs, this could be somebody that might go through a variety of sexual experiences with a number of people, because Gemini, of course, could be about variety and restlessness. Mars and Gemini could be somebody that's attracted to somebody for their mental agility and drive intellectual stimulation from, but it could also be somebody that might go through a number of different, as far as sexual parts. That was interesting. If I remember correctly, there was a woman named Mary McGregor, I believe her name was. She sang that classic, iconic hit, Torn Between Two Lovers. When I looked it up, and again, this is if I remember, you may want to confirm this, people, but she has Gemini, Venus in Gemini at the 29th degree, the full, what I say is the full culmination of that energy of the planet and sign. And the thing about it is, I think it's interesting how I've spoken about in previous videos how you could have celebrities that could be so, that they can connect with certain, whether it's actors and actresses with roles that correspond with their astrological energy, or even singers that might sing songs that correspond with their astrological energy. Mary McGregor may be no exception, singing that song, and Torn Between Two Lovers. And somebody with Venus and Gemini might actually be torn between two lovers in a number of instances. I'm not saying she was, but it's interesting that she did sing that song. And at 29th degree, of course, that energy could be very amplified and intensified. So the thing about some aspects in one's chart which could indicate Infidelity, I would say, like Mars or Venus making an adverse aspect to Neptune could be an example. This could be an indicator of, I would say, duplicity sexually. I mean, where one might be more inclined to be cheating on a romantic lover or significant other or what have you. This is and some other. I mean, it's really there's a number of things that looking at this as well and saying well, as far as elements in astrology for infidelity. Another main example could be Juno, because Juno can be tied in with our marriage partner. And if we have, like, say, if Neptune is making an adverse aspect to one's Juno in one's chart, I would think that would be another indicator, because you have Neptune, the planet of deception and duplicity, making the adverse aspect to Juno, which is connected with marriage in astrology. Now, a thing too is that some things, I mean, let's say somebody has, let's talk about degrees. If somebody has Venus or Mars at the 29th degree of a sign, and especially like if it's in mutable sinus, you know, I mean, this is a person that might not get enough sex. And looking at this, I mean, that is something, I mean, when you look at that, if somebody is a person that has a very exorbitant sexual nature, that could give a little propensity for cheating, especially if they're not getting enough from their current lover. So those are some things, I mean, to look at as far as infidelity in astrology. Now, also in a composite chart, I mean, what I talked about in this video is in a natal, you can apply to a composite chart as well. I mean, like in a relationship synastry composite chart for two people, like if you have Venus or Mars in that 12th house, or if you're the Venus and Mars, one or both make an adverse aspect to Neptune, or even if Juno makes an adverse aspect to Neptune in that chart, Neptune in the 5th, the 8th, the 7th, even by transits, there can be some indicators, you know, as well, what I've described natally. Somebody getting transit Neptune to one's 7th house or 5th house or 8th house as some examples. Now, there can be, I mean, there's also in synastry aspects you can look at as well, but synastry aspects between one person's chart and another. I mean, you could even have, if you have something like, I mean, some adverse synastry between two people's chart, like involving Venus and Neptune, or Mars and Neptune. Even like you could have Pluto being connected with manipulation. If you have Pluto involved in manipulation and making an adverse aspect to another person's Venus, that could be something where that Pluto person can be very manipulative in matters of the heart. And sometimes that could indicate that that Pluto person may be cheating on the Venus person. Or even the Pluto, you have Pluto making an adverse aspect to Mars in the synastry aspects between two people's natal charts. Because Mars, of course, is connected with sex. This is a thing too. And you could also have, you know, other placements through synastry, which may, you know, indirectly can be connected with infidelity. I mean, let's say, for example, you have someone's Neptune fall in your 1st house, and you're in as far as synastry goes. Well, the Neptune person may be somebody that might be come across as very weak, very evasive and elusive, and that could be, and sometimes that could be due to the person being unfaithful, not being strong in their connection, which of course wouldn't exclude promiscuous behavior. So, I mean, those are some things you can look at as far as that goes. And even a person's chart, even with something like Mercury making an adverse aspect to Neptune, can sometimes play I mean, might indirectly play a role in some cases because that's a person that might not be able to tell the truth or be very deceptive, say things that are fallacious. Um, Person's natal chart, let's say they have their moon in adverse aspect to their Pluto, they could be about emotional manipulation, and they could be, or they could be about manipulating the women in their life. Pluto adverse Venus in one's natal chart could be manipulating relationships. So those are some things, and the person that is, it's important to look at your prospective partner's chart. I would really advise that to see for elements, aspects, placements of potential infidelity. Anyway, people, that will conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.